Hey everybody, I am Kevin Iole, and it is my pleasure right now. I am joined by the champion, the BMF. You know what that is? My man, Jorge Masvidal. Jorge, how are you, pal?
Thank you, man. Pleasure to be here.
Appreciate you. Congratulations on the win over Nate Diaz. What's the reaction been like? I mean, that fight, it kind of got a life of its own, and it just picked up steam after he called you out at UFC 241. Such a huge event that particular night. The Rock, President Trump, maybe I should have said that in a different order. We're at ringside. Roberto Duran, one of my all-time favorites, was there. What's that been like in the aftermath?
Well, initially when all these things were coming into play, I was trying not to think about it. The president's gonna be watching me perform. Roberto Duran's gonna be walking me out. The Rock is gonna award me with the belt. I try to not think about all that because at the end of the day, it's a fight.
Right.
I don't want to think about these outside circumstances that I really can't control. So I just worry about it's a fight. After the fight Sunday, when I got back home and I was to myself, I let it all sink in, man. And it was amazing that all these things lined up. It was amazing, man. It was a really good time.
And The Rock was there, but you were kind of a rocky story because you were a guy that had lost 2 in a row. Then you come into this year, and all of a sudden things changed. You beat Darren Till in an incredible performance. You had the record knockout over Ben Askren. And then, of course, you ended up the year by stopping Nate Diaz. What was the difference? It shows, I think, the fine line between winning and losing in the UFC. But what do you think the difference was between you losing those fights and not getting over the hump and then coming and doing what you did in 2019?
Well, 17 and 19, a lot of different changes. Cutting off a lot of negativity, mainly the mindset. But to get that mindset, I had to remove a lot of things from my life. I'm still in that process. Every New Year's, my resolution is trim up some more, clean up some more, get rid of more negative stuff. So that's mainly it. That's the biggest difference from 17 to 19.
How does that affect you as a fighter? Like when you're talking about there's negativity, like so you have problems in your personal life, but that doesn't stop you at the gym, right? You're able to go train and do all that. So how does it manifest itself in a fight? How does a problem that you have in your personal life affect you as a fighter?
It could affect you different ways. It could affect you when you go to training. Maybe you're just in a bad mood and you're overthinking stuff or over trying to hurt somebody. It could go many different ways. I could have a really bad day in my personal and still do really well in the gym. But it doesn't mean that I could have done the best I could have done. So I keep myself in the zone that I know I get the best attributes. I realized this from being away from the sport for a year and just thinking about everything from losses, wins, practices, how I felt, my mindset before a competition or even a practice, a sparring session, and just started running those numbers in my head, like when did I have the best outcomes, when did I have the worst, when I was overtrained and I felt like crap, what was I thinking of or what was I doing, how was I sleeping? So I just did that over and over and over. I had a year off and I was in a lot of isolation, so I got to micromanage, reverse engineer my whole career, and when I came back to the sport, I just did the things that are positive, that I got positive results from, that worked for me throughout my whole career.
Do you think had you had the mentality that you have today at the start of your career that things would have been differently and that you wouldn't have had to wait so long in your career to get such a big opportunity?
Definitely, but also wouldn't have learned a lot of things. Some things that you can only learn by going through the sport. I used to fight going backwards very well, very technical, but in MMA the judges don't see that, don't credit it. You could win a boxing match going backwards. It's very hard to win MMA, even if you're outlanding the guy 3-1. It's hard, and my numbers show I've lost fights that I was going back. And that's the only thing I was giving up was just ring generalship as I was going sideways. I outlanded guys by a lot more takedowns, more knockdowns, and I was robbed. So I knew I had to make a switch. Naturally, I'm a counter fighter. So I had to make that switch, and that only would come with time, So it was mindset and also the experience that I got from it.
I wonder, some people may know this, we don't have the most hardcore MMA fans on our site, but Kimbo Slice, the great Kimbo Slice, was known as a street fighter out of Miami, and you did a lot of that stuff too. He kind of introduced you to that. How did that make you as a fighter, fighting in those spots where you never know what's going to happen, right? It's one thing to, fight in a sanctioned fight in a cage where you know the rule set. When you're in a backyard fighting some dude, you never know what's going to happen or what somebody on the side may do.
That's exactly it. That's the unknown gray area factor. I don't know if somebody's friend's going to get upset, pull a knife or a gun, And you go with your people to protect you, but at the end of the day, at least me, I don't care for none of that. I think it's petty. I just want to compete, fight, and that's it. Like it was with Ray, we'd shake hands, hug it up, and just give each other that respect. I don't think it needs to be any more than that. sometimes it would be riots and problems, you know.
Do you feel like that taught you something about the business, going through those? And did you learn about the fight business and what it took to succeed in those kind of fights, even though they weren't considered professional fights?
Just be a dog. What I've always thought, no matter what, be a dog. The guy was considerably bigger than me and hit way harder than me. I remember I'd hit him with like a 3-piece and then he'd come back with one and I'd rock my foundation. So I just, back then in the same way that I am now, I'm a bigger dog. I might be slower, I might be weaker, I might have less technique than you, but I know I'm a bigger dog, and that's always something that I carry into every fight, and I put it on the line every time.
That was, the thing that got people excited about your fight with Nate Diaz is both of you guys were that kind of fighter, and that you knew neither one of you was going to quit, and that you were going to fight until there was a definitive conclusion to the fight. When you were sitting in the audience at the Honda Center, when he turned to you and called you out, did you have any inkling that he was going to do that? And I remember you came into the press room that night and talked about it, but what was your real honest reaction the first time he said your name?
Kind of shocked, kind of not. I knew that there might be a possibility to call me out. And I was just thinking, man, I've been wanting to fight this guy for a while for the qualities that he brings to the ring, for the dog that he brings. He's one of the biggest dogs in the sport. Skill set, I've never thought he had the best skill set, but heart-wise, he's one of the toughest guys to step in there. And those are the fights that I love. I want to fight the best and the toughest guys, bar none,
Both Nate and Nick, are kind of, I think, similar, his brother, Nick. Do you think that they're kind of, in a way, they're like Mike Tyson from this standpoint? They win fights before, they even start because they seem to get into opponents' heads a lot of times.
For a
Do
fact.
you feel like that's a factor, and how were you able to avoid that happening to you?
Well, psychology doesn't work on me at all, My psychologist will tell you that. So there's ain't nobody in the world that's going to get in here. You wouldn't want to do that either, For the guys that have claimed it, like Ben Askren, a couple guys have claimed it, they got it in my head. It's never worked out well for them, I grew up in some rough environments, so my psychology is pretty on point, especially when it comes to warfare.
Right. Speaking of Ben Askren, you may have heard the news today that he announced his retirement. He lost to you in the fastest knockout in UFC history.
It's not bad, though. Second fight in the UFC breaks a record.
There you go. He's a record holder before he goes out.
Yes, he is.
What's your reaction? I mean, are you disappointed that he's gone so quickly out of the UFC? Was he good for the sport or bad for the sport?
Definitely good because he brings in his own crowd. He was a standout in wrestling, especially collegiate wrestling, so he did have a fan base. He did some things over at Bellator 1FC, so he did have a crowd with him that he brought to the sport, a different type of crowd, I think. But what I don't like is we're fighters. We're supposed to fight, man. You got 2 losses. It's no big deal, my brother.
Right.
Get back on the high horse, get to work, and figure it out, man, I've heard that he has hip issues and stuff, so I can't comment on how bad his body is and if it's holding up or not. That's a different story. But as far as fighting goes, 2 losses can't discourage you if you're a fighter,
Yeah, you're proof of that because you're probably going to be, well, let's ask you. You were Israel Adesanya. Make the case for Jorge Masvidal for 2019 Fighter of the Year.
I'd vote for me, obviously. I'm going to be a little biased, But I don't know. I think what I've done, only one other guy in my weight class I've done that, and it's a great company to be in, is Matt Hughes, that he had 3 stoppages over ranked opponents in 1 year. I think that in itself speaks a lot. No matter what they say about the Nate Diaz, the cut or not, I wasn't losing that fight just on the scorecards alone,
What was that like that night when you were in there and you see the President of the United States sitting there looking at you? Hey, whatever your politics are, like whether you like President Trump or you don't like him, that is the President of the United States, the most powerful man in the world. You look out there and you see him. What goes through your mind when you see that?
Well, at the fight, it didn't hit in. I get focused a lot and get a lot of things out of my way, so I don't notice nobody but the guy in front of me, So I might notice somebody waving at me and I wave back, but I really don't. I'm not in there. I'm in the fight, So I didn't get to see Trump. I didn't get to embrace a lot of those things till after. I was like, man, that's crazy. I think since he's president, this is the only time he's been to a fight.
Yeah.
That says something, man, One bad motherfucker came to see another bad motherfucker work,
Did he talk to you afterwards? Did you see him?
No, we didn't get to talk. We did get an invite, though, to the White House.
Whoa! Let's get a little detail on that.
Yeah, we got an invite to the White House So we don't know the dates yet. We don't know when it is, but I did get that, and that's an honor. No matter what your political views are, I mean, he's the president of this country.
Well, speaking of getting invitations to the White House, we know one guy that's been to the White House, which is your former teammate Colby Covington.
He begged to go to the White House.
He begged. So
Yeah.
he begged Dana White,
invite.
right?
He begged Dana White. He begged Dan Lambert. Dan Lambert called his Skull and Bones brothers and made it happen. Mr. Trump invited me because he saw what a bad motherfucker I am. There's a huge difference between us.
So where I was going with that was you may fight the winner. He's fighting Kamaru Usman at UFC 245 in Las Vegas next month in December. First, I want to get your take on who wins the fight, and second, what the feud is between you and Colby.
Well, the feud started with we had the same coach for a long time, since he was amateur to all the way that he fought for the title against RDA. And they had worked a setting on the payments and stuff. My coach has had the same deal with me as he's had with many other fighters, and it's 5%, and it's just a handshake. You know, he doesn't want a contract or nothing. He also cares for the quality of a person. So when he trains with somebody, before he takes them on, he spends like a good 2 weeks, 3 weeks with them. He sees, all right, I could bond with this guy. He looks cool.
Right.
I'll take him on board. No paperwork needed. I've never signed a contract with him. I've never missed a payment. After the RDA fight, Colby didn't pay him and just straight up stiffed him. You know, my initial reactions was, I'm gonna fuck this guy up, because I'm the one that brought him to my trainer, and then you do this, you make me look like shit besides you being a piece of shit.
Right.
My coach said, God has bigger plans. We'll get him in the ring and you can embarrass him there. And I said, okay. So since that day, we stopped talking. But I didn't want to take it to the media or nothing. I wasn't gonna say nothing.
Right.
But he started opening his mouth and just being the person that he is. That he can't generate attention by himself, so he has to mention your name, mention that guy's name, this guy's name, and all these guys are on steroids, and there's no proof, no validation to what he's saying. That's the type of person he is. So once he started opening his mouth, I'm not gonna keep mine shut. You know?
Sure.
So.
I mean, you know, whatever, and I'll say the same thing I said about President Trump. Whatever you think of Colby, some people like him, some people don't. The guy's a hell of a fighter. I mean, he's got unbelievable cardio, and you know what he did to Robbie Lawler was really impressive, I thought.
In some aspects, yeah, because he threw 500 punches but never hurt Robbie once. So if you're just doing this because you got the guy tired from wrestling, I don't know. I don't give it credit. And I think, like they always say, it's so cliche, but there's levels to this, you know. There's a reason why Colby wouldn't want to fight. If he could pick guys, he wouldn't want to fight. There was a reason why he was saying, though we weren't talking for a year and a half, he's my best friend. He was just saying that like 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, that I'm his best friend. Now all of a sudden I'm his mortal enemy. The guy has his wires crossed, especially when it comes to me. He got to train with me a little bit, so you could imagine the trauma I put him through.
So he knows.
Yeah.
Let's just, you know, look at Usman. I think Usman's one of the more underrated fighters in the UFC, and I think, you know, even when he beat Tyron Woodley, which to me was a really great performance because I have respect for Tyron, I don't think he got enough credit for how good he is. But so, how do you break down Usman and Covington? Who do you think wins that fight, and do you anticipate fighting the winner?
To fight, they're fighting for the spot to fight me.
Okay.
You know, as we spoke earlier, I'm the ticket at 170 pounds, and I'm gonna go and get the biggest, best, and toughest fights. You know, so it's looking like we might fight Nate Diaz next. It's looking like it might be Conor McGregor next. Obviously, those fights come first because of the paychecks, everything it brings. While these guys are settling the dust between the hugging championships, you know, I got into the sport to separate myself from the pack and beat the crap out of guys. Those guys don't do it. What I did this year, I got 3 stoppages this year. They haven't done their whole career. And this is math speaking. This is not opinion. You could look it up. What I did this year, they haven't been able to do their whole careers.
Are you impressed by Usman as a fighter?
Not at all.
No?
I think there's some things he does well, which is just kind of stall. You know, he just gets to a leg, takes guys down. And I'm a fan of grappling, but I like to see grappling offensively.
But he has good kicks if he's not hurt, right? And he's been hurt a little bit.
Kicks?
He can kick if he's healthy.
Nah, he can't kick nothing, man. It's like me saying there's an MMA guy that's like a great boxer technique-wise. It's like, nah, he's a great boxer for MMA.
Right.
Maybe, you know, Usman's good kicker for like YMCA, the public club, you know, but not
he's not kicking me, believe me.
He's not kicking me either, you know. That guy would never land a kick on me.
Let's, you mentioned Nate Diaz. That was kind of a strange story that came out. Nate Diaz told Ariel Helwani that you messed up his little bro, and so he wants to fight you. He had a chance to fight you at the beginning of this year, and he chose not to. When you heard that, what'd you think? This guy hasn't fought. It'll be 5 years if you fight him next year. It'll be 5 years since he's been in the ring. Is he really worth fighting?
Definitely, I think because if he's ever been motivated for a fight, I think it's going to be this one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think whatever he's been doing in the past, he'll cut it and he'll get into his ways of fighting, you know. And knowing the Diaz brothers and how much they got love and respect for each other, I know the guy's going to come with everything he has. That hypes me up to want to fight, to like, hey, fucking let's do this, man, because you're not taking nothing of what I got.
Right.
You're knocking at my front door and you ain't getting in here, man. I'm going to stop you right where you're saying, you know. That's how I feel. So if he's serious about it, he signs the paperwork, and the UFC matches my handsome fees, we're in there. We're here to take souls.
I thought it was awesome that you, the night of the press conference when you were asking about Conor McGregor, you were eating the pizza, just going, he's not big enough for me, but you mentioned him as a potential opponent now because obviously he's the money guy.
I don't want to sound like a bully either, because since I've won the Nate fight, he hasn't said a peep. So if that guy doesn't want to fight, man, I'm not bothering nobody. I'm not going to be a bully.
But
either.
Dana changed his, you know, he said to me long ago, he said to me maybe 6 months ago, Conor's not big enough to fight Jorge. That's what he told me. And then all of a sudden he's changed his mind. You know, he's saying, yeah, I kind of like the fight. So where did that mind change come from? It's either you talked to him and said you wanted to fight, or Conor talked to him and said he wanted to fight, right?
I don't know. I don't know. Dana be having a lot of ideas all on his own. So I don't know what got him to change. But the truth is, that boy's gonna get hurt if they lock him in there with me. You know, I'm in like segregated population. It's not the type of guy that they allow me to play with.
Well, let's wrap it up on this then, because you mentioned boxers. So Canelo Alvarez fought on November 2nd. I'm sure you are aware of this, but when he fought in Las Vegas, your fight was shown in the arena while he sat in the locker room waiting, waiting for you to finish. So that's how they were worried about what your fight was doing that particular night.
And that in itself is impressive, because I'm sure you might know even better than me. I don't know if in combat sports that's happened.
I never remember it happening.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if that's happened where they stop a live audience to do something like that. So I got to take credit for that one.
You did something big there. You shocked me, though, when you said you wanted to come and fight Canelo Alvarez. And now Alvarez, I have him ranked as the best fighter in the world in boxing. I mean, what he's done recently, moving up in weight, tremendous amount of respect for him as a boxer. As I have for you as an MMA fighter, but they're different sports.
Different sports completely.
So how do you get over that hump? I mean, other than just the fact that you're going to fight him for a shitload of money, how do you beat a Canelo Alvarez?
Well,
or even be competitive with him?
I think naturally I'm a bigger guy. I know he just went up a couple weight classes, but naturally I'm a bigger, longer guy. And on any day I'm more athletic than him. And it's just because what our sport requires of us. You know, we have to lift weights, we have to be able to swim, we have to be able to run. The type of training that we have to do to get to this level is a little different than theirs. We make these guys seem unathletic when they put us next to us in weight rooms and things like that. So my athleticism mixed with a style of boxing that I've seen in my head that I could carry out against him, you know. Not all boxing has to be right from here. There's a lot of guys, my favorite fighter, Duran, would box grapple you and grapple box you and just nullify this hand and then hit you with this one and spin you around.
Who'd you say was your favorite fighter?
Roberto Duran.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's one great point of a different style of fighting. And man, I like to climb the biggest mountain possible. You know, you got him ranked as one of the best in the world, and that's what a lot of boxing critics believe. So I don't want to fight Joe Blow. I want to fight the best guy in the world.
When you heard that he got a check for $35 million to fight Sergey Kovalev, I don't know what you made for your fight that night, but not too many fighters are making $35 million for one fight. What went through your mind? I mean, why do you think that dichotomy exists?
I want that money. I want what I got to do to get that. Take his soul. Let's go, sign me up. You know, we're gonna find out real quick if I'm about it or not. If I'm made to that standard or not.
Has there been any conversations at all?
There's been a little bit back and forth between my management and the zone, a little bit of talks. Nothing official yet, but we got the ball rolling. You're talking about it. You know, somebody else is gonna talk about it, and before we know it, the right person's gonna hear it and say, "This makes a lot of money. Hell yeah, let's do it. Let's pay this guy his handsome fee, bring him on over, and let's see what happens."
Well, we will see. We know he is the BMF. Whether he's going to be the WBC heavyweight champ, we will find out. But we know he is the BMF for sure. Jorge, I appreciate you, brother.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.